Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. At the edge of the archipelago, there lay a harbor that did not appear on maps. Boats found it only when they were already lost, and even then, the shore received them like a hand too tired to close. Lanterns burned there without smoke. Their flames leaned toward the water as if listening. Fishermen said the tides were wrong, ebb without flow, waves that arrived with no desire to leave. Windmilled gulls circled and never cried, and under every plank of the pier, the sea breathed with the rhythm of someone trying not to be heard. They called it the harbor that forgot its name because names are anchors, and this place had drifted free. He came at dusk, a cartographer whose charts had taught empires how to pretend they were permanent. He had crossed a dozen borders and erased them. He had measured horizons until they agreed to be straight. But he had never been asked to map a silence. His compass spun as if drunk on salt. His sextant caught a moon that wasn't there. The harbor received him anyway. From the pier, an old woman watched him secure his skiff. "You won't find true north," she said. "Not while the sea wears someone else's voice." He smiled with the arrogance of a man who trusted tools. "I measure stars," he replied. "Then measure the ones beneath you," she said, and left him to the water. Night arrived without ceremony, and the lanterns turned the harbor into a shallow constellation. He leaned over the pier to read his reflection. The sea did not give it back. It offered, instead, a different face. A woman's pale as surf, eyes dark as trench water. He recoiled and blinked. The face dissolved into ripples. Somewhere beyond the breakwater, a chord sounded low, flawless, and impossibly near. It was not music yet. It was the idea of music, the outline of a song that had not remembered its words. He found himself humming before he knew why. The melody had no end. The melody wanted none. The old woman returned with a clay cup of something warm. "You heard it," she said. "They test the shore with quiet notes first. If the harbor answers, they sing." "Who?" he asked, though he knew the story carried its own name. "The ones who are punished with beauty," she said. "The Sirens." He laughed softly. "I chart coasts, not nursery tales. Nursery tales are what keep coasts from eating their children," she said. She pointed to the dark. "Long ago, they were voices the sea lent to sailors when the sky had none. But the world forgot to listen, and the gift curdled into a curse." He walked the length of the pier until boards turned to rock and rock to foam. The chord came again, fuller, nearer, and this time it wore words he could not translate. He felt them, though, as one feels rain through cloth, cool, inevitable, everywhere at once. The song was not a summons. It was a memory experiencing itself out loud. Syllables curled around the shapes of things he had lost. The house with 3 steps and a black door. The coat he outgrew before winter. The laugh of a girl whose face he could draw only when his eyes were closed. "Name it," the sea seemed to say, "or I will." He sat at water's edge and tried to write. Ink refused the page. Lines refused to be straight. The harbor breathed beneath him, and the paper softened as if it, too, had been at sea too long. "Map what you hear," the old woman said behind him. He did not turn. "I hear a lie so beautiful it wants to be true. Then it's a prayer," she said. We make those when truth breaks our teeth. The cord rose. Words unfurled. He did not understand their language, yet he knew their vows. I will return what you forgot to mourn. I will become the shore you thought you left. Your mother's voice, your first dawn, your unbroken promise. He felt the pier tilt. No, it was his heart, choosing a direction that did not exist on his instruments. From the mouth of the cove, shadows moved, slender, human at first glance, then not. Hair like kelp in a tide's long hand, shoulders carrying the posture of waves, faces born of moonlight, not of bone. They sang without opening their mouths. The music was the sea confessing it had learned to dream. The cartographer stood. I will not go to you, he said. The song answered with a kindness that felt like surrender. You already have. His feet were wet. He had not stepped forward. The water had risen, or the shore had sighed. Sometimes love does both. The old woman set the clay cup on the pier. Drink, she said. What is it? Boiled silence. He smiled despite himself and drank. Warmth traced his throat, out to his hands, down his calves into the cold. For a breath, the song thinned, as if the sea were remembering how to be alone. Why are they cursed? He asked. Because they remember for those who will not, she said. Because their beauty is the price the sea pays to be heard. And the harbor that forgot its name? She looked at the water as if it were a child asleep with its eyes open. This is where the sea keeps its unsent letters. The sirens drew nearer. Their voices did not command. They completed. Every note found a hollow in him and filled it with light that did not warm. He thought of the maps he had drawn, black lines like fences on blue fields that wanted to move. He thought of the captains who thanked him for certainty and the widows who never did. He thought of the word safe, how it was only ever true until. The song softened. Give us what you cannot bear to keep, it said. Give us your straight lines. We will return them as shores. He placed his compass on the plank between them. It spun, then stilled, pointing not north but down into the dark. Somewhere beneath, something answered. A deeper chord, old as the first tide. The sirens smiled like weather. We have your measure, they sang. Now take ours. The harbor breathed, and the lanterns leaned closer, as if to hear the moment a man's life redrew itself. By dawn, the tide had erased his footprints. The cartographer woke to a sea made of glass, horizon folding into horizon like pages of an endless book. The harbor that forgot its name was gone, as if it had never been. In its place, a single line of mist curled toward the east. He followed it. Oars whispered into the water. The compass no longer turned at all. Each pull of the current felt deliberate, as though the sea itself was choosing his direction. From the distance came a sound that wasn't a wave. It was too round, too certain, too alive. A note, clear as a sunbeam touching a mirror, stretched across the water and disappeared into air. It was noon, and the sea was singing. At first he thought it was a mirage. Then the mist parted, and there it was, a crescent island, small enough to fit inside the moon. Its cliffs shimmered with coral and glass. Its sand was pale as memory, and from its center rose pillars of black stone that breathed heat even in daylight. Atop the cliffs stood figures that seemed carved from seafoam, hair weightless, eyes fathomless. They did not move. They shimmered in the air between movement and meaning. The sirens. The cartographer anchored his skiff and stepped into shallow surf. The water hummed beneath his boots, singing in a language he could almost, but not entirely, understand. Every sound of the island, the wind, the gulls, even his breath, seemed tuned to a single invisible key. He climbed the black steps carved into the cliff's face. Each one bore the mark of some forgotten god's spirals, eyes, hands, waves, the shape of a mouth mid-song. The higher he climbed, the quieter the world became, until he realized the silence itself was the song. A hum so constant it no longer needed to be heard. At the summit he saw the circle, a basin filled not with water but sound. Ripples of pure tones spread across its surface, vibrating the air, bending the light. And within it, 3 sirens knelt. One with eyes like storms, one with hair like kelp on fire, and one whose lips never moved but whose voice filled the world. They turned to him as if he were expected. "You came to measure us," the storm-eyed one said. Her voice was not air, it was current, deep and slow. "To chart the uncharted," he answered. The red-haired siren laughed, a sound that bent the horizon. "You mistake us for land." He took a trembling breath. "Then what are you?" The one who did not speak answered in the tide's pulse beneath his feet. He understood her meaning. "We are what the sea dreams of when it wants to be forgiven." He fell to one knee, not in worship, but in vertigo. They approached him, light dripping from their hair. Each step they took rewrote the sand beneath them, turning it to reflection. He saw himself, not as he was, but as the sea remembered him, a boy staring into waves, promising one day to draw their edges, a man tracing shorelines to prove the ocean could be known, a soul realizing that to name something is to begin forgetting it. "Do you love the sea?" asked the storm-eyed one. "I love its truth," he said. "Then you love its lies," she answered gently. "They are the same." The noon sun hung above them, suspended like a verdict. From its heart spilled another note, lower this time, slower, older. It filled the sky with the sound of every voice that had ever drowned. He heard sailors call to mothers, lovers, gods, all unanswered, all still echoing. And beneath them, the sirens sang their replies, weaving sorrow into symmetry. "Why are you cursed?" he asked, his throat trembling with the question. The red-haired one touched his chest where his heart beat against bone. "Because we sing what cannot be undone. Because every forgiveness is also a remembering." He looked into their faces and saw no cruelty, only fatigue, as if eternity itself were too long to bear. A shadow moved beneath the sound basin. The water, no, the tone, deepened, revealing a great mouth beneath the island. It was not a creature, but an opening. A wound in the sea where music became matter. The sirens stepped back. "It calls," said the silent one, her eyes wide as the abyss. He felt his body move toward it, not compelled but chosen. The air thickened, trembling with unseen harmonies. "If I go," he whispered, "will I return?" The storm-eyed one tilted her head. "Return to what?" He smiled faintly. "To myself." Her answer was simple. "Then yes, if you know which one is you." He stepped into the basin. The sound was no longer heard but lived, inside his chest, behind his eyes. He felt every current, every tide, every note the world had ever swallowed. He became echo, drift, memory. The sirens sang his name once, not to keep him but to remember him. And as his body vanished beneath the vibrating surface, the noon sun broke in two, spilling light like tears across the island that sang. He fell without falling. The sea opened like a thought, folding him between currents that moved not outward but inward. Light became grain, grain became dust, and the dust sang. When he breathed, the water did not drown him. It remembered how to be air. Every pulse of his heart sent ripples of color through the depths, and somewhere in the dark, voices stirred. They were not sirens now, not voices at all, but echoes of their own echoes. A chorus of what the sea had forgotten to forget. He drifted through corridors of stone and bone, ancient cathedrals built by currents that never needed hands. Pillars of salt rose like frozen waves, each containing a shadow that breathed slowly. He touched one, and the shadow spoke. Not with words, but with images. Ships half remembered by the sea. Lamps swaying in storm. A child on a pier, calling a name that never answered. Every story was a song trapped in salt. Every tear was a map. He realized then that the sirens did not sing to lure, they sang to release. Each note was a key to a memory the sea could not bear to keep. He heard their voices now, not from above, but within the salt itself. And the song was not sweet. It was truth with its skin peeled away. We do not curse men, the song said. We echo them. He felt their sorrow run through him like a tide, centuries of longing for a shore that never believed in return. Through the cathedral's heart he found a mirror, not of glass, but of stillness. When he looked into it, he saw the sea as the sirens saw it, not as a body of water, but as a body of voices. Every current was a memory of someone's last breath. Every wave was the world trying again to speak. He leaned closer, and the mirror leaned back. It showed him his own face, then dissolved into 1,000 others. Men and women, sailors and sirens, mapmakers and mourners. All the same voice, sung through different mouths. He remembered the old woman's words, because they remember for those who will not. And suddenly he understood he was not a witness. He was an instrument. The sea had chosen him to record its memory the way ink records time. But to write for the sea he would have to forget the sky. A part of him wanted to rise, to see light again. Another part knew that to return without understanding would be to remain lost forever. So he let go of the breath he had been holding since the beginning of the world. The salt crystals began to glow, one by one, like stars beneath the earth. Each pulse was a story released, a memory freed into motion. The cathedral shuddered with the sound of reawakening. He raised his hand, and the currents obeyed. He was no longer a cartographer. He was the map itself, alive, breathing, endless. From above, the sirens sang one final note, a promise in place of a warning. And for the first time in centuries, the sea was silent enough to listen. There was no surface now, no above, no below, only depth folding into depth. He drifted through corridors of lightless calm, where even silence seemed to echo. The water had weight here, but not gravity. It pressed not against his body, but his thoughts. Every movement birthed a whisper. Every breath left a trace of light that vanished before it could be seen. He realized that this was not a place the sea had made. It was a place the world had lost. Columns rose from the dark. Not coral, not stone, but the memory of both. Between them hung bells made of bone and glass, each trembling with sound that could not quite escape. He passed through them carefully. When his hand brushed a bell, it sang not in tone but in memory. He saw a woman waiting on a cliff, her hair pulled by the storm. A ship turning its bow toward light that wasn't dawn. A god sleeping beneath waves, dreaming of rain. Each image burned through him like recognition. At the far end of the hall, a figure stood among the bells. She was not siren, nor human, nor shadow. She was what the sea became when it prayed. Her eyes were the tide at midnight, black, infinite, still. Around her shoulders flowed a mantle of seaweed and pearls, and from her throat came a hum that bent the very water. "You have come far," she said, her voice like the sound of pressure. He bowed his head. "I came to understand." "And what do you understand?" "That the sea remembers everything, even what we never said." She smiled. "Then you know why we mourn." She turned toward the cathedral's heart, a vast orb of light suspended in darkness, pulsing like a living thought. "This is where their voices rest," she said. "The siren's song is born here and dies here again and again. It is the sea's heartbeat, the only thing that reminds it it's alive." He stepped closer. Within the orb, he saw movement, thousands of faces, each dissolving into water. They were not trapped. They were waiting. "Why show me this?" he whispered. "Because you are the first to listen without asking for beauty," she said. "The first to hear the curse as what it truly is, a memory that refuses to drown." The orb brightened. The hum deepened. He felt the water tremble as if the sea itself were breathing faster. "You are not meant to stay," she said, "but you may carry one truth back with you." "What truth?" "That sound never dies. It only changes direction." She touched his forehead. The world exploded into light. For an instant he saw everything, the first tide, the last storm, the curve of the horizon as seen through eternity's eyes. And then silence. When he opened his eyes, he was floating above the drowned cathedral. It lay beneath him like a sleeping god's heart, glowing faintly through layers of dark. The siren's song reached him once more, softer now, no longer a curse, no longer a plea. It was a farewell sung not to keep him but to let him go. He rose through water that shimmered like memory dissolving into dawn. The surface waited, patient, forgiving. The world above was no longer the same. When he broke through the surface, dawn had already forgotten itself. The light was neither gold nor gray, but something between thought and dream. His lungs filled with air that tasted of salt and sleep. He floated there, weightless between memory and matter, until he felt sand beneath his fingers, soft, warm, alive. A shore, but not one he had ever charted. Each grain glowed faintly, as if remembering its life beneath the sea. And when the waves touched the land, they whispered, "We remember you." He sat upon the shore for a long while, watching the horizon breathe. The siren's song no longer echoed through the air. It lived within it, softer than wind, more patient than time. He could feel it moving inside him, threading through his pulse. When he spoke, his own voice seemed to echo in reply, as though something in the sea still answered every word. He whispered, "Was it dream?" The water replied with a single ripple, shaping itself into words not meant for sight. All dreams are echoes waiting to return. Further inland stood the ruins of a temple. Its stones were worn smooth by centuries of wind, yet beneath the erosion, carvings endured, spiral patterns, waves folding into faces, eyes open and endless. The walls hummed, not with music but with waiting. He entered. The floor was flooded ankle-deep, and in the reflection of that still water, he saw himself again. Yet younger, yet older, yet unchanged. Behind him, faint figures shimmered. Sailors, lovers, wanderers. Each one bowed their head and vanished. The temple was the meeting place of every voice that had ever reached the sea and not returned. He approached the altar, a single slab of obsidian, smooth as silence. Upon it lay his compass, perfectly dry. He reached out, trembling. The needle spun once, then stopped, pointing not north but inward, toward his own chest. And with that stillness came understanding. The sea had never taken anything. It had only been keeping it safe until someone was ready to listen. The wind rose, but it was not the wind. It was the sirens, distant yet near, singing no longer to lure but to remember. Their melody carried no promise, no threat, only peace. He stepped outside the temple and found the tide rising gently around his feet. In the foam, shapes appeared, hands, faces, laughter. Not ghosts but memories freed. They circled him, warm as breath, bright as dawn. And then they spoke, not to him but through him. "Tell them we were never lost," they said. "Tell them we are the song beneath their silence." The sun finally climbed above the sea. It shone through the mist, scattering light like wings across the water. In its reflection he saw no horizon, only continuity. He looked once more toward the waves. "Will you call again?" he asked. The sea answered not in sound, but in rhythm, the eternal pulse of tide and heart, of giving and returning. He smiled, closed his eyes, and let the sound carry him once more. For even on land, the song was not over. It had only changed direction. Evening came as a tide of amber light. The shore breathed like a sleeping creature, waves curling with the gentleness of forgiveness. He stood at the water's edge and listened, not for song, but for its absence. The air was thick with quiet, and in that quiet, he heard everything. The weight of centuries, the pause between heartbeats, the moment before a tear learns to fall. The sea no longer called him. It waited. From the distance, a single note rose, fragile, wavering, barely alive. It was the last voice of the sirens. They no longer sang in chorus. Their melody was no longer a net, but a hand reaching for touch. Each tone was a breath held too long, a memory set free. He closed his eyes and felt it move through him like wine through ashes. There was no sorrow in it now, only completion. He saw them then, far out on the water, three figures woven of mist and moonlight. Their wings hung still, their hair drifted like smoke. They looked not toward him but toward the horizon, where the first stars were being born. Their song was not meant for men. It was for the sea itself, a lullaby for a world that had finally learned to listen. The tide rose and touched his feet. He felt the pull of it, soft, familiar, inevitable. "Will you go with them?" a voice asked. He turned and saw the old woman from the harbor, standing in the glow of the last light. Her eyes reflected the entire sea. He smiled gently. "I think I already have." She nodded. "Then you know what to do." He looked to the sand at his feet. There the compass lay again, still silent, its needle pointing toward the waves. He picked it up, opened its glass lid, and placed it in the water. The needle did not sink. It floated, spinning slowly as if deciding what direction belonged to eternity. The siren's song grew fainter, each note a star going out, each silence a new sky being born. The sea answered in whispers. "When we forget, we return. When we return, we remember." He whispered back, "Then I am home." The sun set without falling. The world tilted toward dream. The sirens sank beneath the surface, their voices folding into the sea's heartbeat. The water glowed red for a moment, then blue, then clear. In the distance, the harbor that forgot its name shimmered back into being. Lanterns flickered to life on its docks, their flames leaning once more toward the water, as if listening. And somewhere beneath those waves, a single note endured, not a warning, not a curse, but a promise. "We are the sea that remembers you," and the end of the shadow of the sea, the curse of the sirens.